Thank you.
Let's start with the topical issue. Amina Mohammed.
Yes.
Your reaction to her loss?
Well, I think I would look at it this way, that Kenya may have forgotten an unwritten tradition within the AU, because those who follow the AU politics closely will remember that there's a pattern that the chair of the AU usually oscillates between the Francophone and Anglophone countries. Now, the immediate outgoing, Mrs. Zuma, is from the Anglophone countries, which is the English-speaking countries. And her predecessor was Jean Pen, who stood in Gabon as president. He was from the Francophone. So clearly, the Francophone were seeing that now it is their turn to again have another chair of the AU. So this is one fundamental issue that perhaps the Kenyan government underestimated, but it has come out, it has come to pass, if I may put it that way. The second thing is that perhaps the whole strategy of the Kenyan government may have scared off potential voters as well from other countries, because the way they presented Amina, a very capable lady, no doubt, but they presented her more as somebody who's going to do Kenyan bidding rather than focusing on the African Union issues. So to some countries, the force in which they were lobbying and putting across was as if they wanted her to be there as an extension of the Jubilee government, as opposed to being there as somebody who is supposed to provide equal and undivided attention to issues of the African continent, as opposed to issues Kenyan.
Let's come down to local.
Yes.
Voter registration.
Mm-hmm.
From the numbers from INEC, it's clear that some areas, especially opposition areas, Western in particular, is registering very low voter turnout.
Yes. It's.
Why is this the case?
I think this is a very dangerous trend, and frankly speaking, we need to continue pressurizing the unregistered voters in our strong opposition zones, but generally in Kenya, that please get out of your comfort zone, go out and vote, make a difference. You're going to determine the leadership at MCA level all the way to the presidential level. We need to get these people to come out and vote. And I'm sorry to say, I think it's more of the younger people that are not taking this seriously, because who really would be going to pick an ID? It's not my mother, it's not your father who's going out there to go and pick an ID. It's really the younger people who are having their IDs pending at various centers. These young people ought to go take the IDs and go and register, so that they don't wait for the last minute rush hour.
But isn't it worrying, that this is not happening?
It is worrying. It is worrying. It's a trend that worries us. And in the process, we are seeing very unorthodox things beginning to evolve, which I may touch on. For instance, we've got media reports that an MP from Western Kenya has landed in some difficulty in Uganda, because they are trying to recruit voters from that direction. Now, that is also a sign of desperation, if it is true. That is undermining Kenyan democracy. We must have legitimate Kenyans voting, and it should not be a process that is open to other, because it speaks volumes about the efficiency of the Registrar of Persons. It speaks volumes about the provincial administration in terms of if Kenyans complain they can't get their IDs quickly, how would it be that others can be processed much faster? So these are areas that need to be taken seriously. But more important, let me take this opportunity to tell those voters that are still out there, please go and register. Don't wait, because you are then the enemy of democracy.
Your colleagues have been talking about plots by Jubilee to rig the elections. What informs this?
Well, it's informed by the pattern of things. One, can you imagine since September, when they had the joint committee, September last year, the joint committee of Kiraitu Murungi and Orengo, they sit, they agree on some very fundamental parameters to ensure that the electoral process is smoothened out. 3 months later, the Jubilee government realizes that there's something that may not lend itself to what they would like, and they rush in to unilaterally now renege on that joint agreement. Now, that is not a good sign. They had said that the commissioners would be out and new ones in by December. We are now in January. This is when the new commissioners are getting in. In fact, it was not just December. They started by saying in November, and then they said by December, and then now in January. So clearly, even the new commissioners, even with the best of goodwill, they're going to have a very challenging time to try and ensure that we have a free and fair election. Let me put it this way. At this point in time, we can only hope that there'll be strong observer missions. We also hope that these guys will want to make sure that Kenya remains stable, so that their priority must be to ensure that we have a free and fair election where the will of the people is truly reflected. So we can give them that benefit of doubt because they're new. But the challenge and the burden they have is of extreme importance, and it's so crucial, and they should not allow themselves to be tampered with.
Now, I want to take you back to the last election. You ran on your own.
Yes.
But there was a lot of talk that Kibaki and his team were quietly supporting you. Did they support you?
Let me put it this way. I don't think they did. I was out there campaigning on my own. I don't think you remember a situation where Kibaki stood up anywhere and said he's supporting Musalia for the presidency. He did not. I campaigned out there on my own, and that was it. He may have quietly wanted to support me, I don't know. But he never told me that he was supporting me for the presidency.
Now, you have joined hands with the opposition now, and there are people who look at you as a man who's coming late in the day, to try and take the ticket from the other people who have kept the opposition alive. What would be your response to that?
I think they've got it wrong. First of all, is the opposition stagnant, or should it be a growing opposition? That's the first thing they should figure out. If opposition has got to win the election, it must be a growing opposition. It cannot be a stagnant opposition. I believe my coming into the arena and forcefully pushing for a united front has seriously rejuvenated the opposition in this country. That is what I believe. And I believe there are others out there who see it the same. And if we want to move forward as an opposition, we must be an opposition of inclusivity, bringing in other people who share the same values, who have seen the same pressure, who are feeling the same pain that is being inflicted in the country and on Kenyan people by the Jubilee government. Remember, our constitution says you need 50% plus one to win. So that plus one may be the plus one you're trying to send away. And therefore you'll have shot yourself in the foot. So I hope this message will sink. Now, going back a little bit, they keep on referring to the 2013 elections. But some of the people, without naming names, who speak so loudly about this, forget that in 2007, 2008, we were in opposition. I supported Raila in 2007. And some of those who are speaking about this issue, more often than not, where were they in 2007 and 2008?
There is the question that in 2002, you abandoned NAC and joined Moi.
No. In 2002, okay, NAC had not yet formed at that level. I never had crossed yet. Okay. I was in Kano. I supported Uhuru then. I did not declare my position for the presidency of Kano, of Kenya in 2002. I was not on the ballot paper. I was only on the ballot paper for the first time in 2013. If people get the facts right, they'll realize I have stood for the presidency of this country only once, not twice. And twice is now what we are focusing on 2017.
Before we come back to that, now, because of that decision to support Uhuru Kenyatta, there are people who looked at you as a coward. Are you a coward?
No, not at all. I'm a Democrat. I'm not a coward, I am a Democrat. And frankly speaking, when Raila did not contest 2002 and supported Kibaki, could he have been called a coward? I mean, it's not a logical argument. When Uhuru decided not to contest in 2007, but to support Kibaki, I don't know whether then that branded him a coward. Now, situations can be different. Circumstances can be different. Okay? But the whole idea is that I have what it takes. And McHugh, people tend to underplay one thing. In 2013, the build-up to that election, even after the reneging and betrayal from Uhuru and Ruto and the others, when they said they wanted to support me and then they bolted, let me tell you, a weak heart would have given up on that day. But I said, even if they have failed me, and even if they have reneged, I started on a journey. I must complete that journey. And I completed it courageously.
So, they reneged on the promise to support you. They have asked at some point that you join them. You've said you don't trust them. Is there any slight opportunity or possibility that you could work with them again in future?
My friend, these guys have soiled themselves so much. The logical thing is to vote them out. Plain and simple.
There is no room for negotiation.
Negotiate what? We want to vote them out. And we are urging our supporters and our people to register so that we can have a genuine change in the country. That is what we want.
Now, NASA is coming together. There are people, of course, your colleagues who also want the ticket. Why do you think you are the best candidate to fly the flag?
We will all give our opinions, individual opinions, but I can tell you I bring to the table trust. You know, one of the things that is not in abundance currency, a political currency, is the issue of trust in this country. To trust a politician is extremely difficult. So we must be able to figure out, as we move forward, can we present a leadership that will be responsive, responsible, trustworthy, admit when there are mistakes, and take corrective actions. If you agree and commit to certain lines of action? Will you follow it through? This is what I bring to the table. And I want an inclusive nation, and I want a nation that will respect its constitution, a nation that will strengthen devolution, because that is perhaps the biggest gift we have in our constitution.
Must it be you?
No, that is why there are elections, and that is why people offer themselves. It must not necessarily be me, but I am offering myself, and I'd be very happy if the Kenyans felt that I have presented my case to them and they become satisfied and say, this is the person we want. I would be very happy, and I would then play my role with dignity and with respect for them, because at the end of the day, the decision really lies with them.
How about if you're not a candidate? Would you stick to your candidacy?
We are pushing for NASA. We are creating NASA. To some extent, it may have been generated from the initiative that I've been pushing as NASA. So basically, one would be asking, for instance, if you're a parent and you have a child, do you abandon the child or do you nurture the child? Here we are. We are creating the National Super Alliance. I've been at the forefront advocating for it. So why would I abandon it?
Some say NASA is Raila's project, and so are you by extension.
Now, then in this country, when will Kenyans ever have their project? So if one says Musalia or Raila, or I'm a Raila project, so tomorrow when Raila is out of the politics, so I'll be the one to create the next project? Or what happens? Why then is the constitution there to say that every 5 years we must go to a general election? So to me, let's be very clear, we are Kenyans of sound mind. And the constitution says that you must be of sound mind to be able to hold public office. So I'm offering myself because I believe I have the qualifications as required by the constitution. And I want to work for the Kenyan people. I want to be a servant of the Kenyan people. I am not anybody's project, and I hope we can also move away from that kind of talk and respect leaders for what they are. Otherwise, we'll reach a stage where whenever somebody is elected as a member of parliament, or whenever somebody is elected, whatever, you'll start branding them as projects. We must move away from the old Cold War syndrome. You know, when you'd hear this regime is a puppet of the Americans, this regime is a puppet of the Russians, this regime is a puppet of the Chinese. You know, we must break away from that kind of thing. Let us also respect the Kenyans have an opportunity to choose their leaders and to remove them.
Now, how does NASA plan to choose its candidates, and is there a time frame for it?
We are setting up a team later today, which will go through these aspects in detail. There are a lot of commas and full stops that need to be dealt with and inserted at the right places in looking at the structure and the process through which we'll go through nominations. And this we shall be unveiling systematically as time goes. What is important is that we are conscious of the IEBC timelines. And those are the ones that will determine at what stage we do what. There's a process where nominations must be complete. There's a process where a presidential candidate must also be nominated and so forth. So we will work within those parameters. And we will continue burning the midnight oil, midnight lamp, until we get there.
Finally, what's your view of Jubilee and President Kenyatta looking at
the
the last 4 years?
They have let Kenyans down. They have incurred massive public debt, which is going to be a big burden for the Kenyan people for a very long time. And mark you, this debt is not concessionary. It is not concessionary. Because definition of concessionary debt is a debt where you can have 10 years grace period, 5 years grace period, and then you can have something like 30 years repayment. Okay? Now, that is the kind of debt we should be having more and more within our debt portfolio. But when you have expensive debt, it's burdensome because you have to find a way of quickly retiring that debt. And if your economy is not growing, it will become extremely difficult to retire that debt. And the burden of taxation becomes intense on the people. And this is what is happening. When you go home, just look at your electricity bill. Almost 50% of that bill is taxation. When you go to a petrol station and you fuel your tank, almost 50% of that is taxation. So this burden is going to crowd out the economy. Then the real people who should be growing the economy. Corruption seems to have gone untamed. National cohesion does not seem to be at play. We are seeing more of a duopoly by a few elite people. So basically, we are seeing a very insensitive and non-responsive regime. It's not. It's an executive that is operating like a small members club.
Mr. Musalia Mudavadi, thank you very much.
Asante sana.